Welcome to the Growing Leaders podcast powered by Results on Purpose. I'm Jeff Garrison. Today, we're going to talk about how it is that you get your people making more decisions without you having to be in the room and part of the conversation. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Growing Leaders podcast, powered by Results on Purpose. If you're a small or mid-sized business owner or a part of a leadership team, this podcast is built for you. We share ideas and stories to help you grow into the leader your business needs.
In the last episode of the Growing Leaders podcast, I talked about the 4 stages of growth that companies go through. And today I want to talk more about stage 1, the tactical stage. That place where leaders are in meetings all day, decisions are stacking up, fires are everywhere, and it feels like momentum, but it's actually just motion. And I said in that episode that one of the 2 foundational skills required to get out of stage 1 is boundary setting. No rigid rules, just clear guidelines for escalation. Today, that's what we're building. Because here's what I see happen without it. Too much escalates. Too many decisions, too many questions, and every judgment call. It all flows uphill to the leader. And when everything escalates, the leader never escapes stage 1. That's not a team problem, that's a clarity problem. The team isn't escalating because they're lazy or incapable. They're escalating because nobody ever drew the lines. So today I want to give you a tool that makes those lines concrete. Something you can actually sit down and walk through with your direct reports. Not so much as a policy document, not as a memo, but as a real conversation that changes how your team operates. I call it the decision intersection. Before I get into the decision intersection, let me share how I used it, or rather used a similar model in the past. Back in the 90s, so we're getting nearly 30 years ago, when I was the manager of a couple of different property and casualty claims insurance teams. And I had teams that would settle liability claims, and they had a certain amount of authority, financial authority. They could settle anything without asking me up to a certain dollar amount. And other than that, I told them that make decisions. You do not have enough authority to bankrupt the company, so just get it done. Now, when a decision would exceed their authority, or if they weren't quite comfortable because it was something new that they were dealing with or didn't have a lot of experience, they would come talk to me, and we would use that moment to teach them how to think through those new things or just the bigger decisions. And as they gained in experience and my confidence in them grew, then I could raise their authority level individually. And that's how I was able to continue to free up my time as a leader and get quality work and quality decisions. Now, in my case, the decision intersection was basically regulated by a stop sign. You know, if the authority level, the financial level exceeds your authority, stop and come to me. For most of you, it's not going to be a stop sign. It's more of a stop light. The light is either red, yellow, or green. And the light tells them what to do next. So let me walk you through each one. A red light decision is one that simply they do not have the authority to make. Full stop. They need to escalate it. They bring it to you or whomever has the authority. Now, here's where it gets important. Urgency changes that conversation. If the decision is not urgent, they come to you with context. They don't just drop a problem on your desk. They bring what they know, what they're seeing, and if they can, a recommendation. You want them thinking, not just reporting. Of course, if the decision is urgent, something that needs to move in the next hour or today, they still escalate, but fast. They know the escalation path. They don't wander around looking for permission. They know who to call, and they make that call immediately. An example might be a not urgent example, might be a client asks for a significant scope expansion mid-project. Your team member doesn't have the authority to commit on pricing or delivery, but it's not urgent. The project doesn't start for 3 weeks. They come to you before the next client meeting, lay out what was requested, and offer a few options. You make the call together. In a different case, where it's more urgent, maybe it's the same situation, but the client's on the phone right now wanting an answer. Your team member doesn't freeze and doesn't guess. They've learned to tell the client, because you've talked about it, let me get the right person on this with you right now. And they get you on the line. The red light doesn't mean stop thinking. It just means don't proceed alone. A yellow light decision is where a lot of leaders underinvest in the conversation. Yellow doesn't mean stop. It doesn't mean go. It means slow down and check in. These are the decisions where one of 3 things is true. Either they don't have much experience making this kind of call, or the decision impacts or involves other people, maybe other departments, or they just have a gut feeling their manager is going to want to know about this before they make a decision. Now, that last one matters, and I tell leaders this all the time. Teach your people that if they suspect you'd want to be in the room, that suspicion is data, and honor it. Again, urgency changes this question too. So, if it's not urgent, they reach out before making the call. Hey, I've got a situation I want to run by you. Here's what I'm thinking. They're not asking you to decide for them. They're pulling you in as a thought partner, and this is healthy. And this is what good collaboration looks like, and this is your opportunity to teach and help them think through stuff. Now, they could have yellow light situations that are more urgent. If they have permission, they act and then inform. They make the best call they can. They move and they tell you what they did and why as soon as they can. The key here is that you've pre-authorized this. You've had the conversation that says, if something yellow comes up and you can't reach me, use your judgment and let me know. That conversation has to happen before the urgency hits, though, not during it. So, some examples might be like of a non-urgent situation. One of your sales team members is working a deal and the prospects ask for a reference from a client in a specific industry. You don't usually highlight. It's not a big decision on its own, but it touches another client relationship. That person may not know exactly how solid that relationship is. It's a yellow light. So they check in before committing, before sharing that reference. However, it could be more urgent, the same team member, same deal, but the prospect wants the reference in the next 20 minutes or they're moving on. That might be an extreme example, but the idea is that you're unavailable. In this case, you've already told your team if it's yellow and time sensitive and you can't reach me, use your judgment. So that person makes the call. Maybe they send the reference and text you what they did. You've given them permission in advance, and that's what makes it work. Now, there's the green light, which that's kind of obvious. The green light is one they have the authority to make. They have these decisions that they're just supposed to make them, full stop. It's the other direction. They're expected to make it. No escalation, no collaboration required. They just decide and move. This is where a lot of leaders create an invisible problem. They technically say their people have authority in these areas, but then they second guess the decision, or they want to be looped in anyway, or they ask, why didn't you tell me about that? And what they've done is quietly repaint the green light yellow without telling anyone. Your job is to make the green zone clear and then honor it. So in a non-urgent case, they decide, they execute. And if it's worth noting, they mention it in your next one-on-one. No drama, no approval needed. If it's urgent, it's kind of the same thing, but faster. They decide and they move on. You find out about it through normal channels, a status update, a weekly report, a one-on-one. You don't need to know in real time. Examples of what this might look like is, say your marketing coordinator decides how to respond to a positive comment thread on your company's LinkedIn post. It's not urgent. It's in their lane. They handle it. Done. Maybe something more urgent would be like where a vendor your operations lead works with needs a quick answer on a scheduling change. Can they shift a delivery window by 2 days? It's in her lane. The timeline works. She confirms it. She doesn't text you. She doesn't need to. That's the point. So here's where this becomes a leadership tool and not just a framework. You have to sit down with your direct reports and map this out together. Don't hand them a list. Have the conversation. Walk through the kinds of decisions that come up in their role and sort them together, red, yellow, green. Do that, and 2 things happen. First, they feel trusted. You're not micromanaging. You're equipping them. There's a big difference, and they feel it. Second, you stop getting decisions you shouldn't have to make because they know where the lines are. The goal isn't to get your people to stop thinking. It's to get them thinking more clearly and acting more confidently in the lanes that are already theirs. And when that happens, you start spending less time responding and more time leading. That's how you get out of stage 1. All right, so the question I want to leave you with is this. If your people sat down today and tried to sort their decisions into red, yellow, and green, could they? Or would half of them kind of land in some foggy in-between where they're not sure what you expect? If the answer is they'd struggle, that's not their problem to solve. That's yours. Go have the conversation. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'm Jeff Garrison. This has been the Growing Leaders podcast powered by Results on Purpose. I'll see you next time.